Alright, hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. This is going to be one of the last Unreal Engine 3 UDK tutorials. I'm going to start moving over to Unreal Engine 4. I'm still going to be streaming physics gun level. That's going to be done in UDK. I'm not going to try porting that over to Unreal Engine 4 or anything. But the next tutorials that are coming up in the future, most likely all going to be Unreal Engine 4 related. So keep an eye out for those, but this one's still UDK Unreal Engine 3. So just to demonstrate, this is basically a dissolve material that I was able to learn from one of the Epic forums. I was able to implement it into that physics gun level. I'm going to link a description to that actual forum post so you can check it out. But I'm going to walk you through on how to create the material and how to implement it into an actual level or a scene or something like that. So let me first show you what it is. Let's go ahead and play. So we got a K actor here. He's like, wee! Whoa. Oh, anytime he touches that trigger volume, that's going to happen. So let me try that again so it's not as weird. So that's what we're going to work on. So in general, what we'll do, just take out all the Kismet. I'll delete that crate, I'll delete that material instance, and I'll delete that trigger volume. Whoops. And the first thing you need to do when you start out your scene, we need to go to World Properties. Just make sure your game types are UT game. And also make sure, because in the default levels at least, the kill Z, it's normally at 0, so it's right at the origin and the Z axis. Make that any number that's negative, I think. If you make it positive 24, it'll be above you. Usually negative below you makes more sense, so I made mine negative 2048. Once you have that set up, what we'll go ahead and do, we'll go ahead and create a new material. So let's go into our content browser. In any package you want to create the material in, we'll right click, new material. I'll put this in my physics gun level materials, under materials. I'll just call mine mat underscore dissolve underscore example. Now that we have this up, obviously there's nothing going on right now. So the first thing we need is a specific kind of cloud mask. I had a buddy of mine make one for me, but then I realized they actually have one in UDK. If you type in cloud and then do just textures, you're going to find this bad boy right here, the 2048 by 2048 cloud. So we'll use that one. This one right here is the one that my buddy made. Thanks, Blake. But we'll use T clouds just for this example, since you guys will have it on your end. So let's go ahead and go in. Make sure you have that selected in your content browser. And then we're going to hold down the T key and left click. And it'll give us that as a texture. And then we need to make a parameter, a scalar parameter. So in the top corner, there's a search function. If you just type in scalar, you'll get scalar parameter. This will allow us to reference this number in Kismet and in Matinee. So we need to make sure we name this property. We're going to name this property opacity. And by default, we're just going to make it 0.5 or something in the middle. Because it's going to be this property that we're going to actually call out in Matinee for the animation. So with that, we're going to multiply these two together, so the texture and the opacity layer. So if you hold down the M key and left click, you'll get a multiply function. We're going to have to push this stuff back because there's a lot to it. So let's plug it in. But we're going to plug in the red channel for this one because the red channel has certain masking in it. That'll allow for the dissolve material to kind of break apart better. So we're going to plug that in. And if we hit this, we'll just get the red channel. So that's what the red channel looks like. But also coming out to the opacity is a 1- function. So it's basically getting the opposite, I believe. So, or the inverse property. So let's go ahead and just plug that in. And then there's going to be a multiply function we're going to need. So let's hit M again, put that in, and plug the 1- into the multiply. But what's going to go into the B is another line of functions. So the first one is just going to be a normal scalar property. It's not going to be one that we need to reference, so it doesn't have to be a scalar parameter or anything like that. It just needs to be a constant number. So hopefully my build will stop crashing. There we go. If you hold down the 1 key and left click, you'll just get a 1 constant. It'll default by 0, but we need to make this 1. And we're going to grab a rotator. So we type in rotator, and we're going to keep the default settings on a rotator. We don't need to change those at all, but we're going to put the 1 at a time so that these things will kind of, well, the actual dissolving and breaking happens over time, and they happen kind of in random places, so it has a unique feel to it. Then we're going to copy and paste this texture parameter of the cloud. Let's push these guys back. And we're going to plug the rotator into the back of this UV. And if you actually click on the corner, you'll see what it's doing kind of in real time. If you make this number larger, you can see a difference. It just rotates in a specific way. And then we plug the red channel again into this multiply, and we'll see what we get. You see, you get a little bit of a different look than the normal one that we have up there, just to make it unique. So what we're going to do next, we need another multiply. So just copy and paste one of those. And we also need another constant. Let's hold down 1. We're going to make this about between 9 and 11, so I'll put in 9. The multiply goes into this one, and then the 9 actually goes into this one. So this number basically determines the saturation, what gets picked and chosen. So the higher the number, the fewer is going to be selected. If you make it to 1, it's going to look almost the same, but if you make this 5, you'll see how it starts changing. So we'll make it actually 10. That'll work fine for us. And then we need to just add these two multiplies together just so they come together. So hold down A key and left click gives you an add function. So let's plug these two in. And that's what it's going to look like, which is fine for us. Now we need to do another add function. We're going to add what we have here, this result. We're going to add that with the original opacity parameter. So let's put that in. And we'll show you the results so far. It's going to make it a little more opaque, like barely noticeable. So what we need to do now is to really make the dark spots become much, much darker. So we're going to need a power function. So type in power. This basically will take the base color that we have right now in the add, and we're going to basically multiply it by an exponent. So it's going to be a real huge jump. So we're going to need another constant number. Holding down the 1 key and left click will do that. We're going to give it 100. We're putting that into the exponent. So now if we see those spots are really, 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 really dark instead of it being really kind of grayed out, really unnoticeable. So those gray spots are what's going to come in when we actually dissolve the material. We'll see that towards the end of when we create the material. Last thing we need to do here real fast is just a constant clamp. Just to clamp it, just so it doesn't get too crazy on us. So we have the first part kind of done, but we need to make the actual main material hub, this guy right here. We need to make some changes to him just to make sure this material comes out right. The first thing we need to make sure is blend mode is translucent, just so we can get the opacity parameter to actually come in for us, because this will be an opaque or a translucent material. You can see through it. So let's put in constant clamp into opacity. So now you can see where it breaks up. And if we change the opacity parameter back here, make it 0.1, we see how much it's disappearing. So we're actually going to make our material start at 1, where it's not opaque at all, or no breakups. And we're going to make it all the way down to 0, for when it's 0, it disappears. Once again, we're going to leave it at 0.5 for right now, just so we can see some changes in it. But that's how the material is actually going to function. But back on the actual material hub, there's only one last thing we need to do. It's going to be under translucency. And it's going to be the use lit translucency depth pass. This will allow for the material to stay solid, because when you have this material on objects without that checked, you can see through that object already. We don't want that, obviously. So that's the only change we're going to make with that. Those are the only changes we need to make. So continuing on with the actual material, we're going to need an if statement. This will be for when the colors change. because when it dissolves, we want that orange color to come in. And we only want that orange color to come in at certain points of when the material is animating. So we're going to need a couple of constants here. We're going to need one of just a normal scalar constant, where it's just one number. This number is going to be 0.5. We're going to plug that into A. And then in B, we're going to put in the constant clamp. So whenever those two, we're comparing those two values together, it's kind of like in Kismet when you have that if statement. So basically, whenever A is greater than B, we want to have this really huge orange color come in. So hold down 3 and left click, you'll get the 3 numbered. This will give us the color. We want this to be really orange. So let's do 100, then 5, and then maybe 0.5. No. How about this? We'll do 0. And then we'll do 20. And then we'll do 1 maybe. So let's plug that into A is greater than B. And then whenever A is equal to B or A is less than B, we want to just have a dark color. We don't want it to change. So plug that into both. And this will be our emissive. So now we have the orange color because 0.5 is our opacity at the moment. I believe if we make this like 0.9, it's only going to have those dark spots as orange. It only affects those spots that are dark, really, around the edges. So that's what that if statement really does. So we got this material basically working. All we really need to do now is just make some texture parameters so that we can actually make material instances for this material. So let's type in texture. Let's see. Up here we're looking for texture sample parameter 2D. We're going to clear out that material that's already in there. It does require some sort of texture in there in order for it to actually give us a working material to then make into material instances. Luckily, I believe I have just a solid black texture here. So T_black. That's going to be our placeholder texture for these. So we're going to put that under texture. We're going to name the parameter just diffuse. Put that into diffuse. Let's copy and paste that. We'll name this normal map or just normal. And then copy and paste this one more time. Name this specular. Plug that in. Now I'm also going to make another scalar parameter for our specular power. So I'll just name this specular power. And then let's change this value to 60. Not 650, just 60. And just plug that into specular power. And that's all you really have to do. That's the whole material. So let's save it. Now, let's go to materials, and I believe we named this dissolve. You just need the one that says example. Also, let's just save that. Oh, we can't save the package. Oh well. So anyway, now we'll right click on this. We'll create a new material instance. We'll call this basically keep the whole name, but after instance I'll put crate. So now we have the material instance right here. So all we need to do is get the textures for the crate that we're going to use. So let's type in for static, actually for just textures, we'll type in crate. So the diffuse is right here, so check the diffuse, hit the green arrow, so we can kind of see the diffuse texture coming in. And then for normal, put that in for normal. So now we can kind of see everything coming in. Then, last but not least, since we have a specular, we'll put in specular. And then under opacity, inspect your power, we're going to leave opacity at 0.5, which doesn't really matter. If you want, you can make it 1 just so you don't see anything. Inspect the power, you can make this any number you want as well. It doesn't really matter at this point. If you make it 1, you'll get a really like plain looking specular power. And if you make this like 100, you'll get a really tiny specular. It doesn't really matter at that point. But now that we have that material instance, we'll first put in a crate into our scene. So SM crate is the same one as the default UDK crate. Put that into our scene. I'm going to change its draw scale to about 0.75, so it's a little smaller. Let's go ahead and grab that material instance. Here it is right here. So with that selected, let's go into the crate itself. Under materials, hit that green plus sign, and then hit that green arrow. It'll give us the material right here. It looks a little weird just because of its ability to dissolve. Nonetheless, it's working so far. So what we're going to do, we're going to convert this to a K actor. So let's right click, hit convert to K actor. And in its properties, since we want it to react to a trigger volume, we're going to type in encroach or just ENC. And you'll see a thing at the bottom that says no encroach check. Make that false just so this K actor can react to trigger volumes. With that, I created a simple brush here. Let's just make that a trigger volume. So with the brush selected, go to volumes, and this is just do a normal trigger volume. It's not going to be dynamic or anything like that. And we should get this green volume right here. Last thing we're going to need for the actual scene setup is going to go be in our actor class. Is just type in material. You'll find a material instance actor. Throw that into the scene. I like to make the draw scale a little smaller. And in this guy's properties, if you hit F4, we're going to get the same material as the crate as our material instance actor's reference material. So now the scene's set up. Now all you have to do is animate this and actually let it spawn trigger when the trigger volume is touched. So first, let's go into Kismet. Let's get the animation taken care of. So let's hold down M and left click for Matinee. Make sure the material instance actor is selected. Let's right click in Matinee, create an empty group. We'll just call this crate underscore dissolve animation. Right click on that. We're going to do a new float material param track. So at the bottom, this is for the parameter name because its target material is going to be the one we just made, but the instance for the crate. And the param name we want to mess with is just opacity. So let's type in opacity. And if we look, when we type in opacity, we see that a crate disappears completely. That's a good sign that we know that it's working. We want to make the whole timeline 1 second. For at the 0 seconds, hit enter for a keyframe. By default, set to 0. We want to make that 1. So now we can see our crate again. But then at the 1 second mark, we're going to make it 0. So now when we play it, you actually see the dissolve. So if we loop that, you'll just see keeping it dissolving and dissolving and everything like that. So we get that working, but I want to add a sound effect. So let's go into Content Browser, take away crate in our search. Let's go ahead and filter for sound cues. I believe it's under the word respawn. It's gonna be the last one. Let me go ahead and increase my volume here. So that's gonna be our sound effect. So let's go back into our Matinee. Right click on the main group you created. Let's do add new soundtrack. With that sound selected in Content Browser, starting at 0 seconds, just hit enter and you're going to get that sound playing. So let's play it again. So we got that working. So that Matinee is all set up. So all we really need to do now is set up the trigger volume. It's touch event. So let's select the trigger volume, right click, new event, do touch. And what we're going to do is under class proximity types and set pawn, we're going to type in K actor. We're going to uncheck force overlapping. Max trigger count, we're going to set that we'll leave it at 1 just because we're not going to be able to do this multiple times, so that doesn't matter. But we're going to leave it under player only. But we'll make the max trigger count 0 just to play it safe. So now when this is touched, we want to play that animation. And then when the animation is done, when it's completed, we're going to destroy the actual crate itself, because even though it disappears, it's still physically there. You would be able to run into it if it has collision, things like that. So under target, we're going to select the actual character and make that our target. Under complete to destroy. Oops. And last but not least, we're just going to do a quick console command just so we can see that trigger volume. So we're going to go new action, new event, level loaded, then new action, misc console command. Under target, hold down the P key, left click on target, you'll get all players. We'll uncheck all players, so we'll get player 0, which is us. The actual console command, under the list of commands, we're just going to do show, space, and then volumes. And plug that in from level loaded. And so now when we start playing, we'll see the trigger volume, and we'll be able to dissolve the material. So there's our trigger volume. Now if we untouch. Okay, so we heard the sound play. The only reason we didn't see the animation play is because we couldn't save the package before. So let's see if I can save it now. Just type in crate. This one down here is the example. See if we can save it. Alright, we can. So now that we saved it, we should be able to see the actual animation. And there we go. So we got that working. So that's how you get that animation working. Like I said, in the description, there's going to be a link to the actual Epic Forums post that'll break down the material for you as well. That's where I got the information from. So credit to whoever, I forget the guy's name, who originally made the post, but all credit goes to him for the material. The implementation I just helped you guys out on with. So with that, this will most likely be one of the last Unreal Engine 3 UDK tutorials. It's been a good run, but we're going to move on. We're going to move forward to Unreal Engine 4. The first tutorial I'm going to make, I believe, will be today later on. It's going to be a tutorial, basically some changes about Unreal Engine 4. Not going to be teaching you much. I'm just going to show you the main differences just to get you started. And then from there, we're going to make some crazy tutorials for the blueprints. I may just do editor tutorials as well, just to let you know how the editor works, things of that nature, so keep an eye out for those. Thanks for everyone who supported this channel this far. We can always see bigger and better things going forward. So I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching. Bye-bye!